Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Batman vs. Predator 2.
Last time, Batman and Huntress were butting heads over different methodologies while tracking the same drug dealer. All the while, a new predator was in town looking for a new pointy-eared trophy, stealing the bat signal to lure his prey into a new trap. Issue 2's cover sees a triumphant predator holding up Batman's cowl, as his hand is in the foreground. Everything is colored red, so either Batman decided now would be a good time to try that different color costume every night shtick from way back when, or Predator just killed Daredevil. He's Red Batman, you know. While Gordon is still fighting being put under, warning of the signal trap, Bats has arrived in the Palisades, figuring the Commissioner is using a portable signal to get him to the scene of a different crime. But then the light suddenly goes out, and Batman hears the sound of breaking glass, the result of the Pred discarding the machine. Something's wrong.
Litterbug!
Realizing this could be a trap, he calls out for Jim and comes across a tree with 7 trophies the Predator has so far collected hanging from it.
Frank Miller added his own blood when planting a tree, and this is what it grew into.
He's now more certain than ever that another alien hunter has arrived, which is just reinforced when the killer attacks from behind the tree. As they fight, the detective notes how, contrasting the cold methodology of its predecessor, this newcomer seems bigger, but also more reckless and bloodthirsty. Perhaps younger.
So you're saying it's a teenager? Yeah, that sounds about right. Mockingly repeating words back at you is kind of a giveaway when you think about it.
As Bats manages to flip his opponent over his head, which looks kinda cool, the stuttering assassin Twitch followed the bat signal to the Palisades as well, stopping when he sees the Batmobile and pulls a bomb from his bag so he can collect the $5 million bounty. Back at the fight, Pointy Ears guesses how the signal was procured, explaining some of the officers' heads he saw in the tree, but notices Gordon's was absent, meaning he's alive. After a brief scene change featuring Lieutenant Stocker, one of the surviving cops with Gordon, confirming his condition, we return to Huntress regaining consciousness again. She wonders what the invisible thing was that attacked her, even though it wasn't cloaked when she encountered it, rather it just snuck up on her. She finds the dossier on the various hired killers the now dead Frank and Lou were discussing. Friends of drug lord scum like Terraro don't hang with the beautiful people.
Well, had any beautiful people been shooting at the Predator when it attacked, I'm sure they would be hanging with them.
Though, on a less pun-related note, yeah, they kinda do. It's actually a recurring trope for reputed criminals to party with the conventionally attractive, whether or not their crimes have been proven. Anyway, Batman and the Pred have each gotten in some solid hits, but it's the vigilante that's feeling it. Especially that branch jabbed into his gut. Ouch. And there's more ouch to be had as Bats tries to break free but is knocked down and repeatedly beaten with that very branch. He blacks out and the Predator stands triumphantly, before stringing his prey up amongst the heads in the tree and going to his cave for something. Huntress arrives in the area, finding the destroyed bat signal, and sees a figure amongst the brush, possibly what attacked her earlier, and carefully tracks it.
I've mentioned before I'm not huge on the Predator franchise. I don't know the lore or the specifics of the species. But even so, I'm a little unsure that Helena would be able to track such a creature undetected. I mean, they're supposed to be great hunters, so why would it not detect her following him? But Bats did suggest this was a younger creature, so if it's more inexperienced and sloppy in his efforts, then that'd certainly work in Huntress's favor.
The Pred returns to Batman and tosses to the ground that bat statue head he decapitated in the first issue, as the real deal is waking up. He's still hazy, but summons enough strength to keep his foe's gauntlet blades at bay, and knocks the creature's helmet off. This really ticks it off, and it looks like he's just gonna straight up bite Bruce's head off, if not for the fiery arrow from Huntress cutting the line. Bats initially thought the flame was unnecessary, but then notices how the fire mesmerizes the Pred as it spreads across the tree, enough of a distraction that he smashes the thing's foot with the stone head, and Huntress comes in with a flying kick so they can escape. Twitch sees the crime fighters head towards the Batmobile and waits for them to get closer before detonating the bomb he planted. The Predator shows up, and while that's unexpected, this is the assassin's best chance to collect his money.
He tried entering a Conan O'Brien lookalike contest, but only placed third. His prize was a $30 gift card to Burger King.
The car explodes, but the Capes had already jumped clear when the creature appeared. Speaking of, he's not terribly thrilled, and fires an energy blast right through Twitch's sternum. Bats and a Huntress make it to her car, which looks pretty pricey for a teacher's salary. And on the drive, he tells her they're dealing with an alien headhunter, which she thinks is impossible. "Many things are improbable, Huntress, but nothing is impossible."
Sure, we have Kryptonians, Martians, Thanagarians, Tamaranians, Cthulhuans, but for some reason, a space alien on Earth? Pfft, too outlandish.
After taking a quiet minute to digest the concept, Helena shows him the files on the various hired killers, all of whom are out for him just like the creature. She suggests he could use her help, but he says she's done enough and wants to be let off where they are right now. Yes, he's without his wheels, but he has more where that came from.
"I have multiple cars in my garage, each one a different elaborate bat-themed design. Whoever blew up my last car actually did me a favor. I was kind of sick of that model, and if I'm being honest, I was hoping I'd find an excuse to sacrifice it in some big spectacle saving the city."
Since Tararo hired the killers in the first place, and she's after him as well, mentioning that 3 kids in 2 months have had fatal overdoses from his dope, she's involved already. With the space monster to boot, they may as well team up, but Bat says that's impossible. Helena relents, stopping the car and letting him out, but adds that him needing her help again is neither impossible nor improbable, but a sure bet before she drives off.
"Joke's on her. Making my tattered cape flap in the wind like that only makes me look cooler."
Brief side note, I don't know if Monk is using dope as a general term for drugs, but since it's specifically a nickname for marijuana, I feel I should point out a couple of things. First, an overdose is not necessarily fatal. The term is in reference to taking too much of a given substance, and while taking too much of some drugs can lead to death, this is not true of all drugs. Additionally, there has not been a recorded death attributed to smoking too much weed, in at least the US. That being said, smoking too much can cause serious health problems, some of which can have lasting effects, so it's not exactly harmless, though some strains have been shown to be beneficial in certain medical cases.
Now, I'm not here to make a stance about it or anything. I don't partake of it because I have no medicinal need, and I don't want to use it recreationally. I am just saying that the writers seem to be working on long-standing misconceptions that a lot of people, myself included, held for a long time.
The female assassin from the dossier, Song Sung, is meeting with Tararo in his lavish penthouse. She wants half the payment immediately, since Batman isn't a typical mark, and she's the best of the best, what with her code of honor and so forth. The mobster thinks she'll just take off back to Hong Kong with the money, whereas he's got plenty of goons who do things his way. Despite her claim that she's honorable and not a thief, he tells a couple of his henchmen to throw her out, and naturally she fights back. You know that trope where a group of people will take on a single opponent one at a time? Well, in kind of an hilarious sequence, one of the goons just stands there until the first one gets his neck snapped, and he's ordered to kill the woman. You'd think he'd have at least tried attacking while she was busy pummeling his fellow minion, if only out of common sense. Well, the second guy ends up in the pool, probably dead, and Song flips her way to, then over Tararo, who I guess is just too dumbfounded to react, as she takes his knife and threatens him with it until he agrees to her terms.
Maybe she could get more money if she used the apple as well. It may not seem threatening at first, but if someone tried shoving it up your nose, you'd probably pay them whatever they wanted to.
Bruce is in the Batcave, resting up and studying the files of the people out for his cowled head. And he'll need all the preparation he can get, because a second Predator craft is entering Earth's atmosphere. The comic ends with Gordon in serious condition, and Huntress determined to help the Dark Knight, even at the cost of her own life.
Geez, some people take those employer reviews way too seriously.
2 issues in, I can't find a whole lot to really complain about in this series. A couple pages have a format where the first panel is the entire vertical length of the page, so you have to go up, down, then back up to continue reading on. This way, your peripheral vision is subject to some details before you actually read them. Kind of like with Speed Demon a few weeks back, but not quite as congested. The coloring is very vibrant, which is nice, except that it makes the stealthy space hunter from beyond the moon stick out like a sore thumb when he's got bright yellow skin and a pink or purple helmet. And the two mobsters, Lou and Frank, seem to exist to exposit more than anything else than die, since why it is they would have files on everyone after the Bat Bounty placed by someone else doesn't seem to have a logical in-story point. Also, I noticed that Song Sung looked a lot different in person than she did in her file. I'm betting that someone behind the scenes decided that her spikes with plunging neckline bathing suit look was a bit too sexualized, or it's supposed to be an old photo and she's since adopted a new suit. Either that or someone just forgot her original design. That's entirely possible.
Despite that, it feels like a fairly good follow-up to the first story. The threat is familiar, but we have the twist that it may be a less experienced and even rogue predator hunting Batman. More so, there's more on the way. Tune in next week to find out if it's backup or competition. I'm the Angry Spork, and man have I got issues.